Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's Author Talk series brought to you by the Library Speakers Consortium. For those of you who are new here today, the Library Speakers Consortium is a partnership of more than 200 library systems across 37 states with the goal of making Author Talks more accessible to communities of all sizes. I am Brandon Adler, your host and moderator in conversation with each of the wonderful best-selling, prize-winning, and acclaimed authors that you will hear from throughout our series. Today, we are honored and excited to have best-selling author Dr. Michele Borba join us for an exciting chat about her book, Thrivers: The Surprising Reasons Why Some Kids Struggle and Others Shine. But before we dive in, let me pause for one moment and give you all the standard quick housekeeping information that we need to go over to ensure that everything runs smoothly. Then we will learn a lot more about our guest. So we have compiled a lot of viewer questions that were pre-submitted with registration. So thank you for pre-submitting those. But keep in mind, we will also be taking your additional questions throughout the conversation. So when you have a direct question for Dr. Borba, please click the questions button below this live stream video to submit your question as we progress through the presentation. If you have a question that you want to ask right now, go ahead and click that link right now to submit your question. In addition, we invite you to interact with your fellow viewers in the live chat box, also located below this stream. Dr. Borba has also provided everyone with some additional resources. So you will find the Thrivers 7 Essential Character Traits worksheet, as well as the Core Assets Survey in the Resources folder, also located under this live stream. If you are unable to attend the full talk for any reason, you will receive a thank you for attending email in about 24 hours, and that will, in that email, you'll find a link to the recording. So now, to formally introduce our guest for today, Dr. Michele Borba is the author of several acclaimed titles, including the title of note for today, Thrivers: The Surprising Reasons Why Some Kids Struggle and Others Shine, as well as Unselfie: Why Empathetic Kids Succeed in Our All About Me World. In addition, she is an internationally renowned educational psychologist and expert in parenting, bullying, and character development. She has spoken to over 1 million participants on 5 continents. She's an NBC contributor who regularly appears on Today and has been featured on as an expert on Dateline, The View, Dr. Phil, NBC Nightly News, Fox and Friends, Dr. Oz, The Early Show, and many, many others. Welcome, Dr. Borba. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. I've been so looking forward to this. I think probably the most important thing everybody needs to know is I'm also the mom of 3 boys. I don't know how to get a girl, but I do have 3 boys. And I was a teacher for quite a long time. And today's is, I think, one of the most pressingly important things we need to do as parents. We're raising our kids in a very uncertain new world. Who knows what next point along the way would be? And I think what I've been trying to figure out, actually my entire career, is why some kids struggle and others shine. And here's the best news, parents. Really, what we now know is thrivers are made, not born. And it means that we can teach a few skills along the way. When you say which skills matter, I spent about 7 years trying to look at the best science that says, here's the skills that seem to help kids not only be more resilient and bounce back, reduce those mental health problems, but also be peak performers in classrooms. And now the most amazing thing is these are the same 7 that are going to give your kids a boost for the 21st century. These are the same 7 that Harvard says are going to be most likely to help your kids succeed in the real world, and they're all teachable. Thrivers, each chapter is one of these 7. But today, what I'd love to do is take you through what I know parents have in terms of the most pressing questions, or just a few simple tips that you can use that will help your child be able to more likely to thrive. If you have a piece of paper to make this real presentable to you and your own family, you just may want to just fold it into 8s so that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and star is going to be the single most important thing you want to do for your family. What I want to do is take you through these, because whether your child is a toddler or a teen, or you're worried about yourself or your spouse, it's never too late to boost resilience. And I think the time is now. We need a new roadmap forward, because the new normal is going to continue to be uncertain. And the first skill along the way is confidence. What we do know is that when we look at some children, despite adversity, and that's what the science is telling us, parents, despite adversity, some kids still are able to bounce back. And one of the most pressing things that helps a child be able to bounce back is that understanding of who I am, not what mom or dad wants me to be, but who I am. So here's the first thing I'd love you to do, because we now know that that confidence helps your child when stress comes to be able to bounce back and say, I can focus in on, I don't care if it's my reading or my violin or my cooking. The first thing I'd love you to do is be a talent scout yourself and watch each of your children a little more carefully. All of the research is saying not only is confidence going to help your child in the real world be able to be more productive, to be able to have that flow state, to be happier if he uses that talent. But in the meantime, take a 3x5 card, look at your kids a little closer without them knowing you're looking, and see, is there a moment that you see your child is legitimately more tenacious or focuses a little longer? Maybe it's the knitting, or he learns that task a little easier, or he has an eagerness. You say, "Hey, sweetie pie, it's time for dessert." And he says, "Oh, mom, can I please finish this?" That's what you know is that child's real interest. Once you know that child's interest, we do know that's a high correlation to helping that child begin to thrive. You're going to get a core asset survey later on that has over 150 traits. They're called assets for a child. Do you know that 77% of the time, this will kill you, we spend more time focusing on our kids' deficits, their weaknesses, and not their strengths. Once you discover a legitimate strength, maybe he's kind, or maybe he has a wonderful speaking ability, or maybe she's artistic. First, pass the strength on to the teacher, to grandma, to maybe the daycare worker, the nanny. Let somebody else know the strength because they're going to focus in on it a little more. Begin to praise your child, not all the time, but praise your child. And when you do, use the word because. Honey, I just noticed how kind you were because you held the door open to grandma. Did you see her face? She was so happy. Because makes your praise more specific. Earshot praise is absolutely incredible. Don't use it all the time, but maybe you've seen your child legitimately really be good in art. Your husband comes home, you turn and you say, "Wow, you should see Ned's artwork." Don't let Ned know that you know that he's there. But you then to describe he really has a passion for art. He's really good at it. It quadruples the praise. And most importantly, parent, carve in some time. I spent a lot of time interviewing dozens of kids when I was writing Thrivers, and I asked them, "What are your hobbies?" And I can't tell you how many kids look at me absolutely dumbfounded of who's got time for a hobby. Hobbies are what is going to help our children be able to reduce the stress and be able to build up their confidence. The beginning of what it all is, step one, is confidence. So if you've got Notepad, maybe your first step is, what is my child's legitimate strength? There's dozens of other ideas in Thrivers. I just want to give you a bird's eye view that we've got this, and building resilience is not another program, folks. It doesn't cost any money, and it's not a tutor. It's just legitimately knowing who our kid is and helping them become their best. The second trait, though, is empathy. I think we've all learned how important relationships are. We're faced with a real loneliness deficit when our kids and ourselves, and mental health has never been a bigger issue. The CDC now warns us that 1 in 3 American kids will suffer from stress or depression. Empathy is the seeds of relationships with another person, and it's something that our kids are hardwired for at birth. But unless we nurture it, it lies dormant. And we've looked at a 40% drop in American kids' empathy prior to COVID in 30 years, while at the same time, narcissism went up 58%. How do you build empathy? Just intentionally. Here's a few things that you may want to consider. First of all, know there's 3 kinds of empathy. Your child, one of them may be watching Bambi, and you see him just become so distressed. He's just such a basket case. That's affective empathy. He's feeling with the character, or he's feeling with his friend, or he watches the news and he's feeling with the hurricane victims. That's one kind of empathy, but that's not the only kind. The second kind is the C kind, or the cognitive empathy. That's what we want our children to have, because now your child can understand a difference. He may not have the affect and rub away the tears, but you can see him stop to try to understand where another person is coming from. Please tell your child, you don't have to agree, but try to understand where the person's coming from. The last one is one of the best ways to reduce stress. That's empathy in action. If you see someone distressed or you see that your friend is really sad, what can you do to make your friend feel better? That begins to boost the empathy up. And here's some points that you may want to consider. The first thing is the seeds for empathy is being able to notice the other person exists. And one of the things I worry about, and I know you worry about, is that our kids haven't been practicing their social skills. Those are the beginning stages of relationship building and social confidence. Empathy of feeling with another person has come a little while, but the first thing is help your child right now by just modeling. Hi, how are you? Smile, take your child grocery shopping and make sure you just introduce yourself to someone or wave. The first thing that you need to know is that all the skills of resilience are best taught by showing kids, not telling them. That means you're an instant model yourself. Eye contact. Here's the other thing I worry about, and I know you do. We're raising digital natives. And one of the things we're discovering is that our kids are more comfortable looking down at a screen and not up at a face. You can't feel with somebody if you're always looking down. So one simple little rule is always look at the color of the talker's eyes. The child will look up. If he's really shy, just look here. He's on the spectrum, you can look here, but at least holding your head up. We now know that eye contact is one of the most highly correlated traits of well-liked kids. Third is encourage. You're playing chutes and ladders. You're playing chess. Make a rule that you got to encourage dad or mom or grandma or brother or sister at least 3 times. Hey, good job, high five. Because it's also the seeds of beginning to help your kids feel a little comfortable with each other and say thank you. It's amazing how gratitude plays a part in empathy. First thing is, if your child is a little lonelier or a little more awkward, start building the empathy traits. The other thing is, use the formula feels plus needs. This is Martin Hoffman. When I was writing Thrivers, I loved to find just simple little bits of data that's so science-backed and proven that raises more empathetic kids by just a simple question. How do you use it? The first thing is, it's hard to say, how would you feel if that happened to you? If your child doesn't know feelings. So start naturally talking feelings more with your child. Oh, you look sad. Even 2-year-olds. You look happy. Make your face look happy. Or you're reading Charlotte's Web. How would you feel if that happened to you? Or look at your friend's face. Right now, how does he feel? Once your kids know feelings, and it'll take them a while, do you know that they're going to be more engaged in learning in classrooms? There's the correlation. But the next thing is you can add the next question. If your child knows that his friend feels sad, then your next question is, what can you do about it? What do you think he needs? Or what do they need? That simple question, feels plus needs, not only boosts empathy, but actually creates more well-behaved children. That's Martin Hoffman. Third thing is library, keep using it. Because one of the most highly correlated traits we know of empathetic children is they read, and they read what's called literary fiction. You too, adult. If you read literary fiction like Bel Canto, All the Lights You Cannot See, I'm not talking 50 Shades of Grey. I'm talking being able to get into the shoes of a character like The 100 Dresses or The Wednesday Surprise. Why is Wonder one of the most popular books of children across the world right now? Because it's literary. It's literary fiction, and you can feel with the character. And as you're reading out loud, parent, how would you feel if that happened to you? What would you need in order to feel better? You want to know something really fun? Just put a sheet over the top of your dining room table. For little kids, it's now a reading fork. Every night at 7 o'clock, get the flashlights, get the dog, get the pillows, get a book, and everybody reads together. You'll not only be boosting academic achievement and vocabulary, but you're boosting a child's ability to get into the shoes of someone besides themselves. Please, parent, do one other thing. Look at the books you're reading to your child. If you have a little daughter, then make sure she's also reading books about boys. Make sure that you're looking different races, different cultures, because we're more likely to empathize with those like us. How do we help our children feel with them and make them become us? It's exposing them and making them feel comfortable with differences at a much earlier age. So many things you can do. Let's keep going. Third one is self-control. I know I'm going through this quickly. My goal today is to give you a bird's eye view of the 7 chapters in Thrivers, and then you can dig deeper, or you can say to yourself, just from us talking today, that's the skill my child needs right now. And then dig in, because one of the things we know, parents, we know that what the pandemic has done for us all is boost our stress, and stress will continue to rise to a point where it'll hit anxiety, depression. And we've never seen such a level of rising stress in our kids. 77,000 pediatricians signed a pledge saying, we are now in a state of national emergency with a youth mental health crisis. Maybe all of us need to do one thing. As you're looking through these 7 traits, I need to help my child learn how to manage stress in a healthy way. Maybe just go to chapter 3, because that's the key. And there are different ways to do so. Maybe the first thing you do, because new behaviors take around 21 days, parents, this is not overnight. This is you choose the one skill that your child needs, you identify it, and you keep working it through. But maybe you just tune into your child a little closer. And if you really tune in, you're going to see a pattern that you may be overlooking. Right before your child gets into that temper tantrum, but before he gets anxious, he'll do the same thing. You don't have stress 24/7, but you'll notice a pattern. And that is, for some kids, there's physical stress. You can see their shaking hands or their clenched fist, or you can see their rapid breathing. For some children, teachers are saying our kids are a little more irritable now. They cry a little more, or they're acting out, or maybe they're a little more moody. Not all of those, but what's your child's unique stress sign? And once you know it, that's not time out. That's just nothing more than, I noticed something, sweetie pie. I noticed that right before you go to take that time test, or right around 3 o'clock every day, you start to rub your head or you start to grind your teeth. That means you're starting to get stressed. The first step to helping our children be able to reduce stress is recognizing what causes it. That may take you a while. You can also get a calendar and start marking when are the times or the dates that that child is a little more stressed. It's going to be different for everyone. And then what do? Once a child knows his stress signs, for little guys, you're going to be the stress monitor for quite a while. But there's nothing more critical for a middle school or teen to be able to know, I'm starting to feel stressed, because a couple of things you can do. What many parents are now doing is creating calm down, safe zones in their home. You just place them, maybe it's a beanbag chair, or maybe it's just soothing items, but have your child be able to put, here's some things that help me, mom or dad. Natalie, age 14, she told me, I discovered it was music. So my mom loads iPads like Mozart into my music. I just put my earphones on and it really helps. I said, oh my gosh, Natalie, how wonderful is that? What happens when you do something really good? She said, don't worry, I got that covered. It's Elton John, I'm Still Standing. I start pulsing around the house. The key is she knows what helps her reduce the stress. For some children, it's books. One little guy told me it was his goldfish. He just loves to watch it. It helps him just decompress. Many of our kids don't have a calm down space or a calm down corner or a thing to help them decompress. Help your child. And maybe it's setting up a space together. That's going to be one thing that you may want to do the moment you see the stress start to come in. Another thing, what I discovered from working with Navy SEALs, this was the most amazing thing, is that here's the most elite forces in the world, and I'm working on Army bases, and they tell me, okay, we're doing 3 things that maybe you taught kids, it would help them because it's helping us get through some really tough times of adversity. The A is, these are my ACTs, how you act, but you can use them with kids. The first thing is you help them assess stress so they are able to identify their stress signs. Once you know that's what's causing my stress, or I'm starting to get stressed, C is take some slow, deep breaths, way deep. Navy SEALs told me the best way to decompress is a 1-2 breath. It actually changes their brains. if you do it enough. Deep breath from here, like you're riding up an elevator. Hold it. Now slowly let it out. Like you're going down the elevator, but your exhale must be twice as long as your inhale. I've seen moms do that. I've seen dads do that. Grayson, take a deep breath. He was 2. She's monitoring him. But over and over and over she does until I saw this kid at age 3 says, I got this. I'm taking the breath, Mom. T is talk positively to yourself. And that is find one thing, calm down or chill out or I got this. You notice that each one of these may take 21 days. Each one of these, you show your child how to do it, or you do it as a family together. And if you keep doing it over and over again, your child is going to be able to manage emotions without you anywhere and anytime. And that is a huge correlation to resilience. Everybody has stress. Does your child know how to manage the emotions and regulate them before they become so overpowering that he can't cognitively function? ACT. Here's some other ideas. And one thing I know you're going to ask me, because you've already thought of it, which of these stress management, which of these strengths manage most, which are the most important? Whatever your little question to yourself is, my aha moment when I was writing Thrivers was that it wasn't one strength that mattered. Each one of these is a superpower. It's a rare, resilient adult that has all 7. But if you have like confidence and you have self-control, you put them together, it creates what's called a multiplier effect. It just makes them even more powerful. What I've discovered is that too many of our children are lacking these skills because we put so much emphasis on test scores and GPA. But these are a different kind of skills, a different skill set. And if we teach them, not only will they help our kids focus longer, be more attentive, stay with the behavior, keep the stress down, and be a peak performer, but also be more resilient. All you need to do, parent, is ask yourself, which ones do I already have going in my family? Which ones am I already modeling in my home? And once you know those, then you can say, which does my child need right now? Which does my family need right now? For some children, it's going to take 21 days to learn the skill. Some kids, it's going to be 3 days. Some children, it could be a year. You've got to figure out how long it takes for your child, but you've got to be able to equip them with a different skill set so that they can say, I got this. The single greatest correlation I've discovered at a child who's a thriver is that a child who doesn't wait to be helicoptered, doesn't wait to be rescued. It's a child who'd be able to say, I got this, Dad. It's going to be okay. And that's when you can say, he's getting there. That's a child who's going to be able to thrive. 4th is integrity. Why? Because there's different kinds of adversity that our children face. And one of the fascinating things I discovered is that children who really are resilient, who can thrive, have a strong moral code. Because particularly when you get to middle school and high school, there's going to be adversity problems where should I or shouldn't I do this? When a child has a strong value set, he knows what he or she stands for because it's been embedded from you to him or her. It's going to be a lot easier to form your way through it and forge your way forward. What's the best way to do it? I spent a lot of time with focus groups of children writing Thrivers. That's why you're going to see so many stories about what kids said helped them, what their parents did to help them become resilient. And I'll never forget it. I was at a Florida high school, and all the high school teachers said, go interview Mia Dunn if you want to know about integrity. I said, why is that? She said, because we've never had a student who has such strong integrity. Find out how she got that. So I interview her and I say, Mia, every teacher wanted me to interview you. How'd you get that integrity? And she laughed and she said, quote unquote, it was how I was raised. See, it's teachable. I said, okay, Mia, fess up. How were you raised to have such integrity? She said, I remember something my parents did when I was about 6. My dad called me and my 2 younger brothers into the family room. You can do this one tomorrow. All over the wall, the floor were these great big huge pieces of chart paper. and marking pens. Dad said, sit down. We're going to try to figure out what kind of family we want to be remembered for. What do we stand for most? God, what a great question. He said, there aren't any right or wrong answers. Mom's going to write them all down, and then we're going to vote and choose. And the one that has the most votes wins. So we sat down, we ate popcorn, and we started to just brainstorm, like kind or responsible or respectful, virtues, values, character, honesty, empathetic. And then Dad said, okay, we ran out of room. Let's choose. And what we then chose was honest. I said, well, that's pretty easy. How did you remember it? She laughed and said, it was impossible not to. My mother must have said it 50 times a day. My dad made a huge placard that said, we're the honest duns, and put it outside. We kept seeing it. My mom would drop us off. Remember, we're the honest duns. We'd read books. Wow, they're honest duns. We'd watch TV shows. Were that people right there? Were they being honest? My parents said it so much. We became it. That's how you raise a thriver. It's not a one-time lesson. It's figuring out what your children need and continue to say it over and over again, or show it over and over again. In fact, here's the acronym TEACH. How you teach integrity? First, target it. Just like the Dunn family. Let's target honesty. Okay, fine. Second thing is be an example of it. I've looked at pieces of research that are profound on altruistic individuals who have extraordinary integrity. And almost in every case, they'd say, I watched my mom or my dad, and they were always people of integrity. How and what are you modeling to your kids? Accentuate it naturally. Mrs. Dunn accentuated it when you're reading Charlotte's Web, when you're reading Wonder, when you're reading Harry Potter, when you're watching TV. Was that being an honest done? When they're doing discipline. Was that an honest done thing to do? What are you going to do next time in order to be an honest done? Catch them in the act. We're so quick to catch them when they're not doing what we want. But how great to say that was being honest, or that was being kind, or whatever your virtue is, and then tell them the why. And finally, highlight why integrity matters to you. You're going to be far more likely to help your child take those values, take those virtues, and embed them in their heart and soul forever. That's what it's all about, parents. Resilient children are made, not born. But our little quiz to ourselves is to ask ourselves, how do we want our kids to turn out? And by the way, it's never too late. You may have a child that's going off to college or in college, or may have a child coming back home. It's never too late. The key is to be intentional. Then comes curiosity. I love this trait. So let's just take a moment and look at this, because I actually was a little surprised on how often this one kept coming up in resilience. And then I saw the reason for it. You see, resilient children, kids who can bounce back, kids who thrive. And to me, that's the same. That's a kid who says, I got this. Are children who are out-of-box thinkers. It doesn't mean they're little Albert Einsteins. They don't have to have IQs in the ozone layer. But what they do have is the ability, when a problem comes or an obstacle hits them, to be open to ideas and go, okay, well, that didn't work, but here's what I'm going to do next time. How crucial that is for today's world of uncertainty, because nothing is going to be predictable. And our children have to be able to figure out, what else can I do? And if we keep rescuing them, we rob them of the opportunity to develop an I got this attitude. That's agency. And that is a core asset of resilience. So what can you do? Here's just a little suggestion. All of these acronyms are in each chapter. I came up with dozens of them because I discovered that acronyms are so much easier than one of the 5 things to boost creativity or problem solving. But you can use this the very next time your child comes in upset or confronted with a problem. I don't care if it's, I can't find my homework, or I've been bullied, or gosh, mom, what do I do next? The first thing is sit him down and ask, what's bothering you? What's the problem? Name it. Myrna Shore's work did this with 3 and 4-year-olds. And she found that if the kid just said the problem, half the time the problem was solved, just getting it out of their head. So What's bugging you? Keep a poker face. But now you say, all right, let's storm your brain because there's no problem that can't be solved. The answer's inside there. Let's figure out what else you can do. For some kids, how long do I have to do this, Mom? 1 minute sand timers are a godsend, or you can just set your own timer on your phone. But let's just brainstorm what else you could do. With little kids, you can just do tallies. With bigger kids, you can actually write down the ideas again. Don't judge any idea. Don't put down any idea, because brainstorming will keep spinning if they know that there's no problem so great that can't be solved. Add on options. You like sister's idea? We'll add on to it. There's no ownership of an idea. Just keep going. Rapid fire seems to be critical for stirring creativity. Keep storming until the timer runs out. And then you say, okay, now which one are you comfortable doing? If you do that over and over again, and I'm saying if you have a 3-year-old, you just stay with say the problem. If you have a 5-year-old, you add the P. You keep doing it until your child can realize there's no problem that can't be solved. That's sparking creativity. We know that our children are most creative when they're little. Around the age of 5, they drive you crazy with why questions. NASA has been studying our children, and they are extraordinarily concerned because they're seeing a nosedive in creativity in American kids, a nosedive. One of the things we're also discovering is that our children are becoming more and more risk adverse. They're afraid of failing. They're afraid of coming up with the wrong answer. Ivy League schools tell me, Yale, that kids are afraid to think outside of the box because that answer may ding my grade. We want children to be able to be creative, to be curious, to be able to realize, I've got this. What else can I do instead? Please, you can do these any way, shape, and time. Or how about family meetings? I don't care what you do for a family meeting, but that's a great time to do brainstorming. And this is the time when a child can also come up with a concern, like I'm not getting enough allowance, or I don't like the curfew hours. And I love ARE. And that is from a very early age. For a little guy, you can just say, convince me that you got the right answer. Let them advocate for themselves. They've got to have a voice. They must be respectful, but have them come up with a reason. As they get older, assert yourself. That's the A. Give me the reason for it. And now give me the evidence that that is why you think it's the right answer. Do not allow them to just go to Google and just cut and paste it, because we've got to get our kids to be deeper thinkers, to think outside the box. Prove it. Why are you interested in it? I love family meetings. I love children to be able to advocate, because having a voice is another way for a child to learn to be creative, but it's also another way for a child to say, I got this. Are you writing down ideas? I hope. Because what we've done is we've hit 5 core strengths. We've looked at confidence, empathy. We've looked at self-control. We've looked at integrity. We've looked at curiosity. By the way, curiosity is one of the most highly correlated traits of employability later on in the real world. We've got to have our kids be able to think outside the box, but we also have to have our kids be able to persevere. Don't give up, sweetie pie. Just keep going. And one of the things that I want to also caution you about is that I work with schools every week. I'm at 3 or 4 different school sites, districts, and I'm listening to superintendents, counselors, principals as I talk to the teachers or do a speech at night for the parents. And one of the things that teachers are telling me is that there's a real nosedive in motivation. Are you seeing it in your kids? Their focusing ability, or I can't do it, I'm afraid that I won't get it right, has really hit all of our children during COVID. And it's natural. When stress builds, are you feeling a little overwhelmed? Are you feeling a little burned out? And if you don't have, for instance, self-control, that ability to keep the lid on stress or be able to focus a little stronger, it's going to be very tough to be able to persevere. Now you're seeing the multiplier effect. The other thing is Angela Duckworth's work, phenomenal on grit. I know you've heard the term, but she said it isn't just pushing yourself and perseverance. It's pushing yourself with passion, with a sense of purpose. That's number 1, confidence. You put them together without the gold stars and the trophies. And what you have a child is more likely to endure and keep on. Let me give you a couple of ideas. One of my favorite books. Check this one out from the library because I think this one is absolutely what every kid needs right now. It's okay to make a mistake. Ned, he's 6. He gets a fortunate. That's page 1. He gets invited to a birthday party. Oh, how fortunate that is. And then he turns the page and it turns into an unfortunate. See, he lives in Florida and the party's in New York. That's an unfortunate. But the next page is a fortunate because he begins to find ways to work through the unfortunate. Every unfortunate turns to a fortunate, turns to an unfortunate, turns to a fortunate. And that's what we need to help our kids learn. Mistakes are part of life. Don't be overwhelmed with that first mistake. You got to be able to figure out how to bounce back. In this family, it's okay to make a mistake. What are you going to do next time? What did you learn? What are you going to do next time? It creates what is going to help a child be able to persevere. Because one of the most highly correlated traits we discovered about thrivers is they have a mindset that says, I can succeed. It's not locked into IQ or zip code. It's a matter of my personal effort. How hard am I going to work? So here's the other thing that I think is so critical. We spend so much time focusing on the what you get. Did you get 100%? How many did you get wrong? Instead, says all of the research on developing perseverance, we need to instead say, well, yesterday you got 3 right. What are you going to do today to get 4 right? Look at Olympic athletes. I've looked at all of the biographies and autobiographies of them. They never get in there and try to get the Olympic medal tomorrow. Instead, their coach has taught them how to take any skill set, like swimming, and go into little gains. You're here. Now, what are you going to do to go here? That's a rubber band. You gently stretch your child without snapping them. Figure out what they're capable of right now. Don't stop pushing them, but don't pull them so much that they snap and there goes their spirit. Push and emphasize effort. You got it, sweetie pie. And when a child says, I can't get it, you just say, honey, you can't get it yet. You're almost there. Point it out. And what we now begin to do is help our children again develop an I got this, because they realize there's no problem so great that can't be solved. And there's no obstacle so great that I can't redo it. I just have to put a little more personal time and effort into it. I love that research, chapter 6. And I also love chapter 7. And I think we need to put ourselves on pause for a minute and just focus in on our children, because this has been a really tough time. I know, and you know it has. Get into the shoes, empathy 101, of your own kids to this generation and realize for the last 2 years, they've been watching, if they turned on a TV, daily death counts. They've experienced some obstacles and disappointments, but I'm talking also grief. And I'm also talking pessimism that's mounting in many of our children. Children who are thrivers aren't Pollyannas. And I don't want you to think that you're trying to raise your kid to be a Pollyanna. They need a reality base. These are tough times. But they also are children who don't let pessimism mount to the point that it becomes permanent, pervasive, or personal. If it does, it's one of the most highly correlated traits of what boosts the anxiety. Why 1 in 3 of our American kids, says the CDC, is going to be suffering and diagnosed with a mental health problem. What I'm trying to do with these 7 traits is help reduce those odds. So our children, when they are exposed to uncertainty, which they will be, unpredictability, which they will be, which the adversity along the way, which they will be, they've got some skill sets along the way that says, it's okay, I got this. For instance, University of Pennsylvania has been looking at 7-year-olds. Can we help our children at age 7 be less likely to be depressed at age 15, 16, and 17? Yeah. Hours and hours and hours and years they tracked kids. One of the most highly correlated traits is catch your worries. Catch your worries and rebuild it, or problem solving. So let's just look at optimism, or call it hope, and realize there's a few things that we've got to keep in mind for our kids, and that pessimism, or everybody's going to have a negative day. Worry if your child becomes too concerned, to pessimism. And that becomes the big issue. I think one of the most interesting, simple things that you can do, back to the Navy SEALs, what they taught me is that they come up with a mantra like, we got this, or we can do it, or think this through, or it'll get better. Not all of those. But maybe what you can do as a family is brainstorm, like the Dunn family, just poster board on your refrigerator and come up with kinds of positive reframes so that when pessimism mounts, the kid has something to say inside his head to refute it. I got it. It'll get better. I'll get through this. Here's another thing. Some of you have older kids and you go, they're not going to buy into this. So what you do instead, first, if you teach them what Navy SEALs do, there's a bigger buy-in, particularly with our sons. That's the most elite forces in the world, and they suffer from extreme adversity, but they get through it. And one of the things they do is develop a mantra. The other thing that's so powerful is that if you come up with a mantra yourself and you just say it so that your kids eavesdrop on you. Oh gosh, I got through this. Oh, this is a bad day. I can get it. I can do it. And you keep saying the same mantra. Pretty soon, your voice, this is so powerful, becomes your child's inner voice, and he has something to use to refute the pessimism. That's one idea. Maybe that's what you're going to do for the next 21 days. Here's some other ones. Take a moment and think about the images that our kids have been seeing, particularly graphic images that are televised images and they're late breaking news. Middle school kids, research says, the thing they worry about most is the late breaking news without a parent sitting there next to them saying it's going to be okay. But images can elevate goodness and heart and hope, or they can diminish it and emphasize pessimism or create what George Gerber says is a mean world syndrome. Be careful what your children see. But here's, for instance, one image that's absolutely profound. Far left are two kids with a cello. This is a neighborhood, and I love to share real stories about real kids who are giving back and finding solutions of hope. What they did is simply, two kids in Ohio went to their mom and said, Mama, I'm really worried about the neighbor. She's 85. She lives all by herself in that house, and she must be so lonely. Can't we do something for her? Like what? Says mom. Put it on the child, not you coming up with a solution. Maybe we could dress up, bring our cellos down, and do a little concert for her on her porch for just a couple of minutes, 5 or 10. And they did. Now, you'll notice that the neighbor is pretty happy. The kids were elated, though. All the neighbors came out. They started to cry, and mom put it on Facebook, and it went viral. Who picked it up, though? Or kids all over the world. And they looked at it and said, I can do that, because they knew what their number one confidence asset was, like ukulele or guitar or tuba. And so you are seeing Sacramento to New York to Pennsylvania to the Philippines, ways for kids to be able to give back. One of the things I think we need to keep in mind, parents, is that our kids are seeing some very doom and gloom images. Watch carefully what your children see and make sure you're exposing them to the good part of the world. Resilience. That's what we've been talking about. How to help our kids learn to thrive despite the obstacles in their life. Resilience, just to keep in mind, we got to break some myths. It's not one program. It's a process, and it's an ongoing process that we do with our children in our homes. Schools all over the country are doing the same thing. I've got schools that are adopting this as a year-long strategic plan, and they're doing each month a different skill, but you can do the same thing at home. Thrivers. This is the key. Thrivers are really and truly made, not born. This is not locked into DNA. It's not genetic. It's teachable. It's not a fixed trait, and it's ongoing. When you go, when do I start? You start as soon as you can, and you just keep on going. And it's not one trait, the trait of resilience. It's not. It's made up of several traits, and it all starts with you. Later on, you're going to get some assets. And again, these are all part of the book Thrivers. You'll see these. You'll see dozens of ideas for them, but maybe right this minute, here's what I ask you to do. Identify at the beginning right now your strengths. What are you good at of these 7 that we talked about? Each one of them you'll see is also comes up with skills that you can teach. But if you know your strength, chances are you're modeling it and you're already emphasizing it in your home already. Now, next is identify your child's strengths. This isn't going to be happening today, but take a while to look at the other assets charts that you'll be getting. And how about your family strengths? What do you already do? And then I ask you to do just one thing. Right this minute for the star, I want you to identify maybe one little skill that I've been talking about today that is highly teachable, that you can weave into your family. It doesn't cost a dime, and you can commit to it for 21 days. If you do this, parent, that's how we raise up a strong generation, a generation of kids who's going to be able to thrive, not just now, but for the rest of their lives. It's a new, uncertain world. If not a pandemic, who knows what else is coming down the pike? I live in California, Southern California. I wish I could turn my screen to you because there's fires right now that are right across the lake from me. And I'm watching those. It's always going to be unpredictable. The key, though, is we join forces together and say, we got this, because these are things that we can do to raise up a stronger, healthier generation of kids. Thank you. I'm going to turn this over. What questions do you have?
Thank you, Dr. Borba. That was an amazing presentation. Thank you so much. And we have so many questions.
Aww.
The comments are overwhelmingly positive and thanking you for everything. But let's start off with a comment/question from Sarah. She says, I've heard before from some teacher colleagues that if you don't reach the children by middle school, it's almost impossible to get them to change. I have counseled high school seniors who definitely feel like things are hopeless for them and that people have let them down along the way. What do you think about this? There's a deadline to all of this kind of mindset.
I disagree with it. And here's why I disagree. If resilience wasn't teachable at any age, including the adults, the entire counseling industry would go out of business. It's never too late, but I will tell you, as our kids get older, it does get a little more challenging. But yesterday I was in Huntington Beach and I was listening to high school teachers come up with ways to reframe this so it's meaningful and it's active and it involves the students. When you do that, for instance, some of the coolest things I've seen, high schools that are every day doing 3 minutes of slow, deep breathing. It's called quiet time. When the entire school does it, what happens is that the skill becomes learned because the teachers realize those kids need self-control. And as a result, the kids got it. The other thing I'm seeing that is absolutely textbook perfect, there's another pilot site in College Station, which is a high school. And what they're doing is getting thriver squads of their students. And what they're doing is looking at the 7 traits and saying, here's what our friends would buy into. And they're really the ones who are creating the program based on what the research is.
That's excellent. And I like that you mentioned what some schools are doing because we did have quite a few questions about schools. Specifically, Lauren and Kathleen asked, how can schools best partner with parents to support thriving children? And what then?
First of all, you nailed it. The first thing that I think we're doing wrong is we're doing one thing, schools are doing the other. And I always say we have got to start partnering and using the same language. It makes no difference which of the 7 you choose or which of the strengths. You're going to see 21 different skills that are the most highly correlated skills. But let's get on board together. I'm working with a school outside Meadows School in Las Vegas. And what they're doing is I came to talk to all of the staff. They said, okay, now let's get a parent book club. So I said, okay, you get a whole bunch of parents reading the book together. I'll zoom in and just say, hey, how are you doing? And that's what we'll do. Let's get the parents and the teachers started to talk the same thing together. There's also a book club read aloud that's in the back of Thrivers you can use. And if you can't get everybody on board, then start with a couple of concerned parents or concerned teachers. I've got other schools that are pilot sites that they're taking one trait a month. And what they're doing is finding one skill their kids need, reinforcing it over and over again, but then they're putting it on their website so parents can reinforce the same skill at home. I think that's where we need to go next step.
That's wonderful advice. What do you suggest then for, because the social skills aspect is really important, especially as it pertains to schools. And we had quite a few questions pertaining to that. Jody, that was watching today, specifically said, what do you do with a teen who is happy to be by themselves, but really needs to practice those social skills?
One of the things that we're now doing first of all, we are looking at a new widespread concept that's called social anxiety. We're also looking at separation anxiety for our younger kids. So the suggestion I'm telling to schools to do is start with twos, partners, and that's your paired share partner. It isn't anything more than 2 minutes a day, but you turn to your partner and maybe it's how you doing, and it's discussing with empathy-based discussions. You're going to see all different kinds of ways to teach listening in that second chapter. But if the kid begins to feel safe with just talking with one child, then you can get him into a team of 2, 3s, or 4s of cooperative learning teams. Think big, start small. And that's how we're starting to spread it out. The other thing I'm seeing high schools do is find social influencers. Who are the kids who have the social skills? And what they're doing is those kids are being the ones who are modeling the greetings or the high fives. And it's actually changing the whole tone in the school. It's absolutely amazing. Doesn't cost a dime, but it's asking the kids, if you had a problem, who would you turn to in this school? Those are now the social influencers. They become a club and they say our friends are not as friendly as they used to be. And so they're the ones that came up with, okay, then let's start just saying hello and high five. And they literally changed the climate of the school.
It's amazing. We had a lot of viewers that were very vulnerable, and talking about maybe even their own mental health or where they thought that they could improve, and maybe it was affecting the way that they were parenting. Specifically, Jessica asked, I am not an empathetic or physically affectionate person, but that doesn't mean that I don't love and care very much for my children. How can
Yes.
I show them that I can and will support them in a way that feels natural?
Well, first of all, you started with exactly what you need to do, admitting your weakness, but you also know your strength, that you love your children desperately. We are looking at stress that's unbelievable in us, the grown-ups, not the kids, and our stress is mirroring down. So the first thing is look at the 7 and say, what do I need? What we're discovering is a really interesting research study. For instance, self-control. If you're finding that you're the one that is a little more stressed, then maybe you're the one that needs to practice 1-2 breathing. What they did is that they then went into schools because it was easier to measure, and they looked at the teachers and they discovered if the teachers were teaching the kids the skills, the most amazing thing is the teacher's own self-control or resilience also went up because educators are burned out. Start with one skill you think you need. Start practicing the skill over and over again yourself. And what will happen then is that you can then start teaching your kids. So it becomes something we can do as our family. And as a result, your kids will learn it. So will you learn it. And it'll be a win-win. Then you can add the next skill and the next. Slow starts along the way. But the best way to teach a skill or learn a skill, showing, not telling. And then remember from when we were young, you also then taught somebody else. Once you teach somebody else, like your child, or I have kids, little guys, teach the puppy. The puppy really needs to know these skills. 3 and 4-year-olds love to do that. And as a result, they're more likely to learn it themselves.
Michelle, and Melody as well had questions about instilling these skills, instilling even survival and thriving into children who suffer from mental health themselves,
Yes.
and specifically neurodiverse children. What are some tips for that?
Well, number one is I need to just let you know that my whole background started with neurodiverse children. I started with special needs kids. My master's is in learning disabilities, and the first courses and classes I taught were with autistic children. What I learned immediately is that, yeah, they need the same 7, but remember that rubber band? We need to start where the child is. Example on that one were empathy. Many of our neurodiverse kids or autistic children have a tough time showing it. showing the affect, but they have the cognitive ability. I was with a child. This was in Ohio. I'll never forget it. He was standing there at a book talk, comes up to me. He's about 15, 16 years of age. He had just listened to my speech. And I said, how'd you like it? He looked at me and all of a sudden he said, oh, wait. I said, what's going on? He said, I feel a joy bubble coming up. I feel it. I feel it. His parents started to smile. And all of a sudden you could see this kid, the joy bubble came and he just broke down sobbing. He said, I feel it. I felt it. What the parents did, bless them, is come up with a term that was right for the child. It wasn't you're angry or you're upset. It was they saw that and they were able to take that so that they filtered it to the child. I think that's the key. The other thing is these are the same 7 that we do know every one of our children needs who has some mental health issues right now. For instance, empathy is one of the best ways to reduce stress is through altruistic suffering. I'm suffering. I hurt. I've seen more and more kids who really severe anxiety, who feel for another person. They understand that person feels just like me. So what can you do? It's that creating a project so that I can do something and give it to that person. Here's a hint though. The most important thing that I learned about thrivers and empathy is that it doesn't help if you want to really help a child learn a give back project to collect 50,000 coins and give them to Biafra. It's helping the child actually give the overcoat to the person, or helping the child actually see the look in the person's eye when you do a Meals on Wheels. More and more kids who really were suffering from severe depression said it was that look in that person's eyes that knew I could still go on because I knew I could do something to help another. And that was tremendously helpful.
Wow, that's beautiful. Phil is wondering of all of the 7 character strengths, which one do you think is the hardest to teach? And do you pour your time into that one that's the hardest to teach, or do you focus on maximizing the ones that the child is already strong in?
That is such a great question. The first thing is, of the 7, I would start by focusing in on the one the child is good at, their natural strength, because it's like a superpower. And the reason for it is that'll give the child that confidence. If it's optimism or curiosity, I don't care what it is. It'll give the child confidence that you're doing something fun together, as opposed to let's start with self-control because you're so low in it. The second thing is your answer to that is that there isn't one, because each child I've discovered is so different. Empathy is easy to teach to some kids who have got a base of it. Self-control is easy for some kids who have already had experiences with self-control or deep breathing. So the key, I think, is go to the core asset survey that you'll get a copy of. Start by going through that. There's 150 strengths and it'll take you a while. But if you have more than one kid, use a different color pen for each child. But look at which ones I'm overlooking. How many of those are prevalent in one particular area? You'll also see in chapter 1 or the introduction, you can measure these 7 with your child, not your child doing it with you, but you'll get an index of where my child's strengths are. Start with the strength. And then what's the one element that you think my child is really going to need right now to be able to thrive a little more because he doesn't have it and he's struggling too much?
Well, Dr. Borba, I think that we have time for one last question. Quite a few people were asking about life stressors and advice surrounding that. Specifically, Lynn and BP were wondering that what's your advice for parents to help kids thrive when facing such big life stressors like the death of a parent or parents divorcing?
The answer to that is based in science, and it's absolutely profound. They've discovered that regardless of adversity, I mean, we're talking about children who have faced homelessness, sexual abuse, extraordinary poverty, and they were still able to bounce back. And the number one commonality of those kids is a caring champion in their life. That's you, who refuses to give up on the child. You model the optimism. You model the hope. We're going to get through it. I know this is tough for you right now. Every child said it was that one caring champion. If not the parent, it was the custodian or the teacher or grandma. Every kid needs caring champions. Maybe the most important thing for us now is to sit back and say, who are the champions in my kids' lives? Who's going to be able to model these and help my child believe in themselves? Because that's how we take kids so that they can thrive despite whatever the hardship is in their lives.
Wonderful. Thank you so, so much for your time today. I know everybody is going crazy in the comments. All the viewers loved it. So really, truly, thank you very much for being here and talking with us today. I also want to extend a huge thank you to all of our audience members for joining us today with Dr. Michele Borba. Without your support, none of this would be possible. And we thank you for choosing to spend your time with us. As a reminder, below the live stream video, you can find a link to Dr. Borba's book and to the other resources that she has provided for you today in that resources folder. We look forward to seeing you all on September 20th when we talk to the New York Times bestselling author Simon Winchester, and on September 27th in conversation with award-winning author Hernan Diaz about his book, Trust. You can register for these and lots of other great events on your library's event page. I am Brandon Adler, and I thank you very much again for joining us today.